Unaware his wife was a billionaire's only heiress, husband and family threw her and her newborn triplets out at midnight into the freezing cold. This is part 2. Even after the world watched him get arrested on camera, after the judge granted Elise full custody, ordered asset seizure, and investigators opened fraud and endangerment cases against him, Daniel Hayes still found a way to crawl back toward her life. This time, not with fists, not with shouting, but with obsession. The moment he was released on bail, he stepped out of a cold brick detention building, under the streetlights, face bruised, reputation ruined, sanity slipping. There, in the quiet space where no reporters waited and no family bothered to show up, he shook hands with a man Elise didn't know existed. A man who once worked in the shadows of her father's empire. A man who lost everything when Alexander Laurent cut him off. A man who had waited years for the first crack in the Laurent family's armor. And Daniel was the perfect crack. While Elise held her triplets inside the safety of a secured Laurent estate surrounded by guards, warmth, legal protection, and a life she was slowly rebuilding, Daniel lurked near her gates, whispering her name into the dark like a broken prayer. He thought he could win her back with guilt. He thought he could shake her with fear. He thought the past would repeat itself. What he never understood was this. The woman he tossed into the freezing night was no longer the woman who begged him for help. She now stood on her father's legacy, backed by lawyers, security, and undeniable truth. And she held something stronger than any wealth. A reason to never be weak again. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elise's voice fade back into the cold. When you click that button, you stand with every woman once abandoned, every child nearly lost, and every quiet heart that chose to rise. Please subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. The metal door slammed open with a violent clang. Daniel Hayes jerked awake on the cold bench of his holding cell, breath shaking, heart pounding. Sweat clung to his forehead. His shirt stuck to his back. For a second, he didn't know where he was, the courtroom, the courthouse steps, or still kneeling in front of Elise as she walked away with their children. A guard stepped inside. Hayes, you made bail. Get up. Bail. The word barely made sense. Only hours ago, he had been hit with a new reality. Fraud and child endangerment investigations, an emergency restraining order, and full custody handed to Elise Laurent. Cameras had filmed his humiliation. The world had watched him fall. Now suddenly the door was open. He pushed himself up, his legs weak. His wrists were free of cuffs, but they still shook uncontrollably. As he followed the guard down the hallway, images flickered in his mind. Elise stepping out of the courthouse, her calm face, her silence, her triplets held gently in her arms. She hadn't looked at him. Not once. Not even when he screamed her name. That silence burned more than concrete walls or metal bars. Outside, the detention building sat under a single flickering street lamp. The reporters were gone. The officers were gone. Even Margaret and Noah had disappeared. They hadn't come to see him walk out. Daniel stepped into the cold air. He wrapped his thin jacket tighter around himself. For the first time, it hit him fully. He was alone. A voice rose from the shadows behind him. You look worse than I expected. Daniel spun around. A tall man in a black coat stepped forward, the dim yellow light revealing sharp cheekbones, cold eyes, and a calculating expression. His presence felt heavy and somehow professional, like a man used to watching others for a living. Daniel frowned. Do I know you? The man gave a thin smile. My name is Victor Carr. I once worked for a very powerful man. Your wife's father. The air froze. Alexander Laurent. Daniel's stomach dropped. Victor circled him slowly, hands in his coat pockets. Alexander Laurent destroyed my entire career, Victor said quietly. One internal report, one accusation of corruption, one order to cut me off from every contract. And suddenly, 20 years of loyalty meant nothing. His jaw tightened. So when I heard his only daughter married a man who threw her into the cold after childbirth, I paid attention. Daniel shook his head weakly. I don't want more trouble. I just want, his voice cracked. I just want Elise back. She has my kids. She won't even look at me. I have to fix this. Victor stopped right in front of him. You won't fix anything by begging. The words hit like a slap. Victor leaned closer. You fix it by having power, by having leverage, by knowing something she doesn't. Daniel's voice dropped to a whisper. What kind of leverage? Victor pulled a small black folder from his coat and tapped it once against Daniel's chest. I know secrets about Elise's father, things she never learned, things that can break her. And if they break her, he tilted his head, you might not get her love back, but you can take back control. Daniel's pulse pounded, his fingers twitched toward the folder. But Victor pulled it back before he could grab it. Not yet, Victor murmured. You'll see this when you're ready. Daniel's voice trembled. Ready for what? Victor's smile was slow and chilling. To understand that Elise Laurent is not the only one with secrets. Daniel swallowed, throat dry. What do you mean? Victor's eyes glinted in the half-dark. I mean her father trusted very few people, and you're not the only one he investigated. He stepped back into the shadows. Meet me tomorrow night. There's something you need to see. Then he was gone. Daniel stood under the flickering lamp, chest heaving, brain racing. He didn't know if Victor was saving him or using him. But one thing felt certain. The nightmare wasn't over. It was changing shape. Far away at the Laurent estate, a security camera blinked red, capturing a blurred figure standing at the fence line, watching the softly lit windows where Elise and her triplets slept. The alarm screamed through the estate like a piercing blade. Red lights pulsed along the ceiling as guards sprinted toward the nursery wing. Elise Laurent jerked awake in her new bedroom, heart pounding, breath sharp as the shrill sound ripped straight through her nervous system. For one terrifying moment, she was back there on the porch, barefoot, bleeding, with freezing wind cutting her skin, and 3 newborns crying in her arms. Her first thought now was the same. Her babies. She shoved the blanket aside and staggered to the door just as Marcus Hale, her father's former head of security, burst in. He moved with trained precision, eyes scanning, hand near his earpiece. Stay behind me, Elise, he said firmly. What happened? She gasped. Unknown movement near the outer fence. We're checking it. Unknown movement. Her chest tightened. Marcus guided her out into the hallway but kept his body between her and everything else. The estate lights shifted to a softer emergency glow as they walked. Elise, he said calmly, you're inside the safest property your father ever built. High walls, private guards, internal alarms, motion sensors. We designed this place for situations exactly like this. But Elise's hands still shook. Trauma lived in her bones now. Every sudden noise felt like another door slamming in her face. Every shout sounded like Daniel saying, You're not my problem anymore. They reached the nursery. 2 nurses were already there, gently rocking the triplets. The baby's cries faded as Elise touched each tiny chest through the blankets, her fingers careful, steadying. The alarm ceased. A softer voice replaced it through the speakers. Security check complete. No breach detected. Unknown movement outside perimeter only. The words helped. The fear did not vanish, but it loosened. Marcus watched her face. You're safe here, he repeated. No one gets in without us knowing. Elise nodded slowly and walked toward the large window that overlooked the grounds. The lawn lay quiet under the night sky. The fence line seemed distant, the trees barely moved, too calm. A memory surfaced, her father standing in his study, hands behind his back, speaking in that low, steady voice. Strength is not loud, Elise. Strength is quiet. It watches. It decides. It protects. Back then, she thought he was just strict. Now she understood he had lived his whole life expecting danger. Marcus cleared his throat. There's something else you should know, he said. Tomorrow we begin your training. Training? Elise turned from the window. For the Laurent estate, another voice answered from the doorway. Jude Laurent, her father's cousin, family lawyer, and now her closest advisor, stepped inside holding a thin stack of folders. Elise, your father never wanted you to be only rich, Jude said gently. He wanted you prepared. You're not just an heiress now. You're responsible for trusts, companies, and people who depend on this family. Elise looked at her sleeping triplets. Their tiny breaths, their innocence, their complete dependence on her. She swallowed. I'll learn, she whispered, whatever I need to. For them. Jude nodded, approval soft in his eyes. We'll go step by step. You won't be alone. Marcus turned to the control screen on the wall and tapped a series of keys. A grainy image appeared from one of the perimeter cameras. Elise, he said slowly, there's something else. She moved closer. A figure stood near the far edge of the estate fence, just outside the strongest lights. Blurred, tall, still. watching the house. Elise's breath caught. Is that Daniel? We can't confirm yet, Marcus said, jaw tight. But the timing suggests this isn't random. Her pulse quickened. She wrapped her arms around herself. I don't want trouble, she whispered. But trouble keeps finding me. Jude placed a steady hand on her shoulder. That's why you're here. This estate exists to protect the Lauren heir, he said. And now, that's you. Elise looked at the monitor again. The figure did not move. Just watched. Just waited. The same chill from the courthouse steps slid down her spine. She turned away from the screen, focusing on the soft breaths of her children instead. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something darker. As Marcus zoomed in on the footage, he muttered under his breath, barely audible. Whoever this is, they knew exactly where to stand so our cameras couldn't catch their face. The pounding on the front door was so sudden, so violent it shook the entire hallway. Elise Laurent froze mid-step, her hand pressed against the banister. Her heart jumped painfully in her chest. For one terrifying moment, the sound became the echo of Daniel's anger. The slam of the Hayes front door, the snap of everything breaking. Marcus Hale rushed past her with 2 guards, their boots thudding against the polished floor. Stay behind us, he ordered, voice sharp and controlled. Elise's breaths came too fast. Her legs felt weak. Is it him? She whispered. We don't know yet, Marcus replied. One guard moved to the side of the door, ready to shield. The other loosened the lock and swung the door open in one swift motion. Something small dropped to the floor. Not a person, not a footstep, just an envelope. The porch beyond was empty. No running footsteps, no car pulling away, only silence and the cold air pressing against the threshold. Marcus bent down and lifted the envelope carefully with gloved hands. Elise could already see the handwriting on the front. Her name, her old name, Elise Hayes. Her stomach twisted. Marcus stepped back inside and shut the door firmly. Jude Laurent appeared from the nearby study, adjusting his glasses. What is it? He asked. Marcus handed him the envelope. Hand delivered, no one in sight. Jude read the front and sighed deeply. He started. Elise reached for the envelope, but Jude gently caught her wrist. You don't have to read it, he said. Contact is already a violation of the restraining order. We can send this straight to the court as evidence. Elise stared at the envelope. No, she said quietly. I need to see what he's trying to do. She sat on the living room sofa. Her hands trembled as she tore the top carefully. A folded sheet slipped out onto her lap. Her eyes caught the first lines. Elise, please hear me out. I am suffering without you. You destroyed my life by leaving with the kids. I deserve to see them. You owe me a chance to explain. Please meet me. I need closure. The words blurred. Not from tears, from anger. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't remorse. It was twisting the truth, claiming she left when he had dragged her across a porch, shoved newborns into her arms, and thrown her into the freezing night. Her hand clenched the paper so tightly it wrinkled. She didn't read another word. She tore the letter straight down the middle. Then again, until only shreds remained on the rug. Jude nodded slowly, as if he expected that reaction. This is only the first attempt, he said. A man with nothing left becomes unpredictable. We'll add this to the restraining order file. The judge will see exactly what he's doing. Elise breathed slowly, steadying her voice. He wants control, she whispered. Not closure. Jude placed a hand on the back of the sofa. And that makes him dangerous. Do not underestimate him. Marcus walked back into the room, his expression darker now. Elise, he said quietly, you need to see this. He opened his palm. A tiny baby sock, soft, pale blue, worn at the heel. Elise's heart stopped. That's from the night I gave birth, she whispered. It was on the porch. Marcus shook his head. It wasn't there yesterday. We did a full sweep. Someone placed it there tonight. Jude frowned. So he returned here, Jude said. Right up to your door. Elise's hands trembled. Her mind raced. The sock wasn't just a threat. It was emotional manipulation. A reminder of her most vulnerable moment. A message that he still believed she belonged to him, even now. Jude exhaled slowly. This is psychological warfare, he said. Classic behavior from someone losing power. Elise looked at the shredded letter on the floor. He thinks he can pull me back with memories, she murmured. You won't go back, Jude said. Not physically, not emotionally, and the law is on your side now. The icy fear in Elise's chest didn't vanish, but it met something new. Resolve. Marcus studied the baby sock a moment longer, then looked up. This wasn't mailed, he said. He had to be physically at the gate, at the porch. That means he walked right up to this house, knowing you were inside. Elise pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat stutter. He can't come near my children, she whispered. He won't, Marcus said. But this confirms something else. Someone helped him. Our outer cameras were briefly looped. That doesn't happen by accident. Jude's expression sharpened. That means another person is involved. Marcus nodded once. And I intend to find out who. Later that night, as Elise walked past the window, the porch light flickered, and for a single heartbeat, she saw a tall shadow move near the far fence again, watching. The sound of shattering glass exploded through the old Hayes living room. Margaret Hayes flinched as a framed photo slipped from a shelf and hit the floor, the glass cracking across her smiling face and her sons beside her. Two men in suits continued boxing up belongings without slowing. Another city official taped an orange notice to the wall and stamped it with a heavy hand. Asset seizure, court ordered. Margaret's voice cracked. Stop! You can't take that. My mother gave me that table. One of the officials barely glanced at her. Ma'am, everything in this house is tied to accounts under fraud investigation. The order has been signed. Our job is to clear it. Margaret grabbed his sleeve. You can't do this. This is my home. He pulled his arm back calmly. This is no longer your property. Her knees weakened. The humiliation from the courthouse replayed in her mind. Daniel exposed. Their lies revealed. Elise walking out with power they never imagined she had. Now the price was at her doorstep. Noah Hayes, Daniel's younger brother, stood near the window with his arms crossed. He tried to look indifferent, but his jaw flexed as he watched strangers remove their furniture, their television, their history. Mom, Noah muttered. We knew this was coming. The judge ordered it. Margaret snapped toward him. No, your brother caused this. He ruined us. That heiress tricked him, and now we're paying for it. But the officials kept packing. The house, once loud with criticism, guilt, and control, now echoed with emptiness. Each box sealed felt like another piece of their structure collapsing. Margaret paced frantically. They can't do this. We didn't do anything wrong. Noah's voice hardened. Daniel did. And you helped. Don't you dare, she hissed, pointing at him with shaking fingers. Everything I did was to protect this family. I kept you boys fed. I kept this roof over your heads. I did my best. But Noah didn't flinch. He had watched his mother manipulate Daniel for years, lift him up, put him down, twist his guilt like a rope around his throat. He was tired. Margaret sank onto the couch, the last piece of furniture left in the room, and covered her face. For the first time Noah could remember, she didn't look fierce. She looked small, broken. Then a voice cut through the air behind them, cold as ice. This is your fault. Daniel Hayes stood in the doorway. He looked nothing like the man who once acted superior in this very room. His eyes were wild, his clothes wrinkled, his hair hung messily, his hands shook at his sides. Margaret shot up. Daniel, where have you been? You should be fighting this. You should be talking to lawyers. Daniel slammed the door so hard the walls rattled. You told me everything would be fine, he said, stepping toward her. You promised we'd fix it. Now look at us. Margaret stood, voice trembling. Daniel, listen to me. No. His voice cracked with rage. You lied to me. All my life, you lied. Noah stiffened. Daniel, don't. Daniel spun toward him. What else did you both hide from me? Noah's throat tightened. He had found the papers only an hour earlier, hidden deep in Margaret's bedroom drawer. Old adoption documents, hospital forms, legal signatures. Daniel, Noah said carefully, there's something you need to know. Margaret's face drained of color. Noah, don't you dare. Daniel's voice dropped, dangerous and low. What is it? Noah swallowed. You're not our biological brother. Silence crashed over the room. Daniel blinked rapidly, confusion bleeding into disbelief. Margaret lunged forward, grabbing his arms. No, don't listen to him. I raised you. I'm your mother. Daniel stepped back, as if her touch burned. You mean, my whole life was a lie? Margaret cupped his face desperately. We took you in when you were 3. No one else wanted you. We gave you a home, a family. Daniel's eyes widened with pain. So I was unwanted. Margaret froze. Noah turned his head away, unable to watch. Something snapped in Daniel's expression, something deep, fragile, already cracked from the courtroom and Elise's silence. His voice fell into a hoarse whisper. Did Elise know? Margaret panicked. No, she didn't know anything, and she can never know. Daniel's chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Everything he'd clung to, family, identity, pride, crumbled like ash. Margaret reached for him again. If Elise finds out the truth, she'll destroy you worse than we ever could, she cried. You don't understand what that woman can do now. Daniel's face twisted rage, fear, confusion folding together. But beneath all of it, one thing only grew stronger. Obsession. He grabbed Margaret's wrist. What truth? He demanded. Margaret screamed as his grip tightened. Daniel, stop. You're hurting me. Noah rushed forward. Let her go. Daniel shoved him aside and backed away, breathing hard, lost inside a storm of broken pieces. Margaret clutched her wrist, eyes filled with something Daniel had never seen in them before. Fear of him. Outside the half-empty house, a black car waited at the curb. Behind the tinted glass, Victor Carr watched the Hayes family through the window and murmured, He's almost ready. Margaret's scream still rang in Daniel's ears when the black car door slammed shut behind him. Victor Carr locked the doors with a soft click. Daniel jerked forward, hands braced on the dashboard. Why did you bring me here? Let me out, he snapped, panic flaring. Victor stayed in the driver's seat, calm, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel. If I meant to harm you, he said smoothly, I would have done it days ago. Daniel swallowed hard. Then what do you want? He demanded. Victor finally turned, his eyes dark and sharp. To finish what Elise's father started, Victor said. Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? You keep saying that. Victor leaned back in his seat, voice sinking lower. You think your life collapsed because Elise turned on you, he said. But your collapse began long before that, long before you even met her. Daniel scoffed weakly. You don't know anything about me. Victor smirked. Oh, Daniel, he said softly. I know more than your own mother ever told you. That landed like a punch. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then say it, he snapped. Say what you dragged me in here to hear. Victor studied him for a moment, like a scientist observing a specimen. Fine, he said. Let me tell you about the man who ruined both of us. Daniel stiffened as Victor spoke the name. Alexander Laurent, Elise's father, the billionaire, the man who had once ordered cars, guards, and lawyers to save Elise from the very porch Daniel threw her onto. Victor stared ahead, voice filled with old bitterness. Years ago, I worked for him. Security detail, high-level clearances. I was loyal, efficient, trusted. I kept his enemies at a distance. He exhaled sharply. Then he accused me of skimming money from a contract, taking bribes. He didn't even ask for my side. He just issued one order. Remove Victor from all systems, cancel all access, blacklist him from every company they owned. Victor's hands tightened around the steering wheel. In one day, your father-in-law destroyed my career. One report from him, and every door closed in my face. No one would hire me again. Daniel leaned back slowly, absorbing every word. I lost my job, my contacts, my family drifted away. I became nothing, Victor continued. His eyes flickered toward Daniel. So when I learned his only daughter had chosen a man with nothing, a man who publicly destroyed himself and gave me leverage over the Laurents, I paid attention. Daniel felt heat rise in his chest. So this is revenge, he said. Victor nodded once. Your downfall and mine connect at the same point, Victor said. Alexander Laurent and the world he built. Daniel clenched his fists. Elise didn't do anything to me, he muttered. Her family did. Victor arched a brow. She took your children. She walked past you like you were dust. She let her lawyers tear you apart in court, and she didn't say a word for you. Daniel flinched. Victor leaned closer, dropping his voice to a whisper. She destroyed you without even trying. Daniel's breath shook. She didn't destroy me. Her father did. He's the reason she has all this power now. That's right, Victor said quietly. And now you can return the favor. Not to him. He's already dead. His eyes hardened. But to what he left behind. Daniel stared at the dashboard, heart thudding. What do you want me to do? He asked. Victor reached into the glove compartment. He pulled out a black leather folder, edges worn, as if he had protected it for years. Daniel hesitated. What is that? He whispered. A confidential Laurent file, Victor replied. Taken from Alexander's private records before he had me thrown out. Daniel's pulse quickened. Victor opened the folder and slid a single document toward him. Paper yellowed with age, the Laurent crest still clear at the top. Daniel reached for it, but Victor raised a finger. Elise has never seen this, Victor said quietly. Jude has never shown it to her. Marcus doesn't know it survived. Daniel's eyes widened. What kind of document is it? Victor's smile thinned. It's a file that shows what your father-in-law truly thought about you and your in-laws, he said. A secret he kept from her. One that, if used correctly, could break her emotionally. Daniel's shaking fingers lifted the edge of the document. He could just make out the first few words of the title, and then Victor snapped the folder shut. Daniel lurched forward. Wait, let me see. Victor shook his head slowly. Not yet, he said. Revenge requires patience. I will show you everything when you're ready to act. Not before. Daniel slammed his fist against the dashboard. Show me, he shouted. Victor's voice stayed calm. You'll see it, he said. But understand one thing, Daniel. He met his eyes in the rearview mirror, gaze chilling. Once you know what's in this file, there is no going back. Not for you. Not for her. As the car drove away, Victor's phone buzzed not with Laurent's security alerts, but with a simple message from one of his own hired watchers. Movement near Laurent estate fence again. Target, Daniel Hayes. The estate alarms erupted like a roar tearing through the night. Elise Laurent jolted upright in bed, heart racing, breath trapped in her chest. For one terrifying moment, she didn't see the soft guest room ceiling of the Laurent estate. She saw the porch, the dark, the cold, blood on her legs, 3 newborns crying in her arms. Marcus Hale's voice cut through the speakers. Lockdown. Unknown presence near the front entrance. The lights in the hallway shifted to a soft red. Doors locked with a quiet mechanical click. Guards moved in formation outside her room. Elise stumbled out of bed, grabbing her robe with shaking hands. She forced her feet to move, step by step, toward the nursery. When she entered, 2 nurses were already there, holding the triplets close, gently rocking them. The baby's cries were small and confused, sensing the tension. Elise's voice cracked. Are they okay? They're fine, one nurse said softly, just startled. Elise's chest heaved, her breath short and uneven. It's happening again, she whispered. Someone's here. Someone's here. One nurse took her hand. Elise, you're not outside this time. You're not alone. You're safe in here. Look at them. Look at how safe they are. Elise tried to focus on their faces, tiny, warm, alive. She pressed a trembling kiss to each forehead. Moments later, Marcus rushed in, tablet in hand, earpiece in place, jaw tight. Elise, he said, voice firm but controlled. Listen to me. There was activity near the front door, but no entry. We have you sealed in. Was it him? She asked, already knowing the answer. Marcus hesitated only a fraction of a second. Yes, he said. We believe so. He turned the tablet so she could see. Grainy black and white footage showed a man outside the gate, then another angle closer to the front walkway. Daniel Hayes. He moved like a ghost, shoulders hunched, eyes scanning the windows. In his hand, something small and rectangular. Marcus tapped the tablet. We boosted the audio from this clip, he said quietly. For almost a full minute, he stood here by the fence, just whispering your name. Elise's throat tightened. The idea of him standing in the dark, saying her name like a prayer, made the night feel colder. Elise squinted. Her voice trembled. That's one of our old photos. Marcus zoomed in. Elise saw herself in the frozen image, smiling, holding Daniel's arm, taken during the first year of their marriage, before the hatred, before the betrayal, before the freezing night on the porch. Marcus's mouth hardened. He tried to leave it at your front door, as bait, as manipulation. Elise shook her head slowly. He's trying to drag me back into who I used to be. Jude Laurent entered, holding a thin file, his expression grave. That's not all, he said. Marcus found something at the gate. He opened a small plastic sleeve. Inside, a clean, clear fingerprint lifted from the metal. We had the print analyzed, Jude said. It matches Daniel. 100%. Elise's stomach twisted. How close was he? She whispered. Marcus answered quietly. Close enough to touch the gate. Close enough to see the front door clearly. That puts him well inside the distance the restraining order forbids. He's testing how far he can push before we push back. Elise's knees felt weak. The same man who once dragged her out of a house like trash had now come as close as he could to the place that was finally safe. Why is he doing this? She asked. Jude's voice softened, but his words did not. Because you walked away, he said. Because you didn't look at him in court. Because he lost control over you. And men like Daniel don't know who they are without control. The triplets whimpered again. Elise gathered her strength and moved to their cribs, touching each tiny hand. I won't let him hurt you, she whispered. I promise. The estate lights shifted from red to yellow as the outer grounds were cleared. The alarm tone faded, replaced by a low hum of normal security. But Marcus did not relax. Elise, he said, there's something else. He swiped to another angle of the footage, zooming out. In the far corner of the property, beyond the camera's sharpest range, another figure stood barely visible, partially hidden by a tree. Tall, still, watching. Daniel ran when he realized we were in lockdown, Marcus said. But that person stayed longer, didn't move much, kept his face turned away from the cameras. Elise felt her pulse jump. Do you think it's him? The man from Daniel's past? Jude answered. Victor Carr, he said. If he's involved, Daniel isn't just unstable, he's being steered. Marcus nodded, jaw tightening. This wasn't just a desperate ex-husband at the gate, he said. It was a test. They wanted to see our response time. Elise held her babies closer. This is never going to stop, is it? She whispered. Marcus looked her in the eye. It will, he said. But first, we show them the law still works. His radio crackled. Marcus, this is court liaison. The judge has moved up the next restraining order review. Daniel requested direct testimony. Marcus's eyes narrowed. That's not good. As Marcus left to answer the call, Elise stared at the frozen image of Daniel on the screen photo in hand, eyes wild, and wondered what he would do when the courtroom became the only place he could still reach her. The courtroom exploded before the hearing even began. 2 security guards wrestled with Daniel Hayes at the entrance as he fought to push past the metal detector. His hair hung over his face, his shirt wrinkled, tie missing. His wrists were still marked from his last set of restraints. Let me in, he shouted, voice cracking. She can't hide from me. She stole my children. A guard shoved him back. Sir, calm down. I am calm, Daniel yelled, swinging his arm wildly. The courtroom turned as one. Reporters raised cameras. Attorneys paused mid-conversation. Even Judge Avery, who had seen decades of trials, stopped halfway to the bench and stared. At the plaintiff's table, Elise Laurent flinched at the sound of Daniel's voice. Her breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. For a brief moment, the air tasted like that night outside the Hayes house, cold, sharp, cruel. Marcus Hale stepped closer behind her, his presence a quiet wall. You don't have to look at him, Marcus said gently. But Elise did. She looked. Daniel broke free for a moment and lunged toward the aisle, his face twisted, his arms reaching out. Elise, talk to me, he screamed. Security slammed him against the wall before he got anywhere near her. Elise's chest tightened painfully, but she stayed seated. She didn't stand, didn't run, didn't answer. She only breathed. Jude leaned toward her and whispered, He wants a reaction. Don't reward him. The judge banged the gavel hard. Order. Bring the defendant inside and restrain him. Guards forced Daniel into his seat at the defendant's table, cuffing one wrist discreetly to the metal loop so he couldn't charge across the room. When the noise settled, Judge Avery glared down at him. Mr. Hayes, you fired your attorney yesterday, the judge said. Are you representing yourself today? Daniel shot to his feet, yanking against the cuff. Yes, he shouted, because no one else cares about my rights. She stole my kids, she lied, That's enough, the judge snapped. Daniel slammed his free hand down on the table, cuffs clanking. It's not enough. She took everything. She turned my own children against me. Elise stared straight ahead. Calm, pale, silent. Inside, her heartbeat pounded. Outside, she seemed carved from stone. Daniel pointed at her with a shaking hand. "Look at her," he cried. "She's not even human. She sits there like she's innocent. She hasn't spoken a single word to me since Mr. Hayes!" the judge thundered. "One more outburst, and you will be removed from this hearing." A wave of murmurs rolled through the courtroom. Daniel collapsed back into his seat, breathing hard. Judge Avery continued, "This hearing is to review the restraining order and bail conditions in light of new evidence of you approaching the Laurent estate in violation of court orders." Daniel's eyes widened. "I was trying to give her a picture," he said. "A memory. You can't call that a crime." Jude stood, voice calm and precise. "Your Honor, we have video proof of Mr. Hayes approaching the gate late at night, leaving objects on the property, and attempting to come closer to the door." He handed a flash drive to the clerk. "Security footage. Exhibit F." The screen behind the judge lit up. There was Daniel, on the Laurent estate cameras, creeping to the gate with the old photo in his hand. He glanced toward the house, eyes wild. Then the alarms began, and he ran. The courtroom gasped. Daniel shouted, "I was trying to apologize. She owes me that much." The judge slammed the gavel. "That's it. Remove him. Mr. Hayes is banned from future hearings. All further involvement will be through appointed counsel only." Security moved toward Daniel. He panicked. No, don't take me out. Elise, please, just look at me. Just once, please." Elise did not turn. Daniel's voice rose higher, raw, desperate. "Elise, I can fix this. I can change." He kicked as the guards pulled him away. Then a woman stepped into the aisle. Clara Voss. Her heels clicked softly on the courtroom floor. Her makeup was perfect, her hair smoothed into glossy waves, and her stomach visibly rounded under her fitted dress. Pregnant. Daniel froze mid-struggle. He stared at her, stunned, mouth open. "See, Clara." The room fell silent. Clara tilted her head, lips curling into a small, cold smile. Daniel's voice shook. Is that mine?" She stepped closer, just enough for him in the first few rows to hear her. "It's not yours," she whispered. Daniel's knees almost buckled. Tears filled his eyes. What do you mean?" he gasped. Clara leaned in a little closer, her words sharp as a blade. "And Elise knows what you did last summer." Daniel's face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" he whispered, terror creeping into his voice. Clara smiled faintly, eyes glinting with something between fear and revenge. "You'll find out soon," she said. Security dragged Daniel away as he screamed her name, his voice cracking into broken pieces. Clara, don't leave. Tell them you're lying." Clara turned without looking at him and walked past Elise without a glance. A chill slid through Elise's body. What he did last summer, something darker was hiding behind those words, something she didn't remember, didn't know, or hadn't been told. As Clara left, Jude's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and his face changed. He leaned toward Elise. "There's a new file about your father," he murmured, "and you need to see it. Now." While the courtroom emptied, a silent alarm triggered at Jude's office downtown. Someone had just forced a window open, heading straight for his locked files. The office alarm was screaming when Elise, Marcus, and Jude burst down the hallway. Papers lay scattered across the floor. A lamp had fallen, its bulb shattered. The file cabinet, Jude's secure cabinet, the one he rarely opened, stood with its metal drawer bent, lock twisted, and inner folders ripped out. A cold wind blew in through the broken window behind the desk. "Someone broke into my office," Jude shouted, his voice sharper than Elise had ever heard. Marcus scanned the room quickly, his eyes tracing footprints on the carpet, the angle of the window, the path the intruder must have taken. "This wasn't a random burglary," Marcus said. "They knew exactly where to go." Elise stepped into the office slowly, her heart beating hard. Her eyes flicked from the broken drawer to the glass on the floor. "Marcus, Jude," she whispered. "What was in that cabinet?" Jude crouched, gathering torn scraps of paper. "Your father's confidential investigation files," he said grimly. "The ones he kept on people he thought might be a danger to you." Elise's breath caught. "My father investigated people?" Jude nodded. "He was careful. The more wealth he gained, the more he watched the people who got close to his family. It wasn't paranoia, it was pattern. Marcus moved to the window frame, examining the damage. The intruder knew this layout, he said, and they moved fast. Window, cabinet, files, out again. This was planned. Before Elise could respond, Jude's phone vibrated. He checked it and his eyes darkened. It's a message from a security contact, he said. Someone sent Daniel Hayes a digital copy of one of my stolen files, not 10 minutes ago. Elise's stomach twisted. Daniel, she whispered. Of course. Jude stood. He's not smart enough to pull this off alone, he said. That's Victor. Marcus nodded. He would know how to bypass alarms for a few minutes, Marcus said. He works security for your father. He'd know exactly where a man like Jude would keep private files. Elise stepped closer to the desk. This is about my father, she said quietly. Isn't it? Jude and Marcus exchanged a heavy look. Yes, Jude said. And it's also about the Hayes family. He picked up a folder the intruder had dropped in haste. Alexander Laurent's handwriting marked the front. Marcus handed it to Elise. This one they didn't manage to take, he said. Elise opened the folder with careful hands. Inside were old photographs. Margaret Hayes, younger, speaking to a man Elise didn't recognize. Noah Hayes entering a building late at night. Documents showing strange money transfers, small but consistent, years before Elise had ever met Daniel. What is this? Elise whispered. Preliminary observation, Jude said. Your father kept an eye on certain families. The Hayes were one of them. Marcus found a page with denser handwriting. Listen to this, he said. He read aloud. Hayes family showing suspicious interest in Laurent assets. Possible attempt to reach Elise through indirect contact. Continue monitoring. Elise shook her head slowly. That doesn't make sense, she said. Daniel didn't even know who I was when we met. He thought I was just normal. Jude flipped to a page marked with a red underline. This one is older, he said. Elise leaned closer. Her father had written, Warning, do not trust the Hayes bloodline. If they reach Elise, her safety may be at risk. File incomplete. Further confirmation needed. Elise swallowed. He wrote Hayes bloodline, she murmured. He probably never knew Daniel was adopted. On paper, they all look like one family with the same name and the same danger around them. A chill slid through Elise from head to toe. My father knew something about them, she whispered. Marcus nodded. He always had strong instincts, Marcus said. He might not have had all the proof, but he felt enough to write this. A memory floated up her father in the garden with her when she was younger. His voice gentle but serious. If something feels wrong, Elise, he had said, trust yourself. People can smile at you while sharpening a knife behind their back. She had laughed back then, brushed it off as an overprotective father. Now she wasn't laughing. Jude turned one more page. The notes never say exactly what the Hayes planned, he said. But your father clearly believed someone connected to that family might reach for you for reasons that had nothing to do with love. Elise's heart pounded. Daniel didn't know I was a Laurent when he married me, she insisted, then hesitated. Did he? Marcus's eyes narrowed. Are you sure? He asked quietly. The question cut deep, because Elise realized she had never actually asked. Jude looked at his phone again. And now that Daniel has a copy of at least one of these documents, he said, he might convince himself you knew about all this and hid it from him. I didn't, Elise said, placing a hand over her heart. If I had known, I never would have married him. Marcus crouched near the window, staring at the ground outside. Then he stood slowly, something metal in his hand. Elise, he said. The intruder dropped this. He opened his palm. A silver cufflink, engraved with 2 letters, V, C. Elise's stomach clenched. Victor Carr, Jude said. Marcus nodded. He stole the file. He sent a copy to Daniel, Marcus said. He's trying to turn Daniel into a weapon against you. Elise felt the air grow heavier. Why? She whispered. Why me? Why now? Marcus looked straight into her eyes. Because he couldn't hurt your father anymore, Marcus said. So now he wants to hurt what your father loved most. Elise's legs wobbled. She gripped the back of the chair. Jude snapped the folder shut. We need to find Daniel before Victor convinces him of something that isn't true, Jude said. But at that exact moment, Outside the estate, Daniel stood in the dark tree line, gripping the stolen digital copy of the document, eyes wide with fear and rage, whispering to himself, "So, Elise knew everything." Inside the Hayes ruined house, adoption papers lay half hidden under a fallen box. Papers Daniel hadn't fully read yet, but soon would, pulling the last support out from under his mind. By the time Daniel stormed back into the Hayes house that night, rage had swallowed whatever thin balance he had left. Noah Hayes hit the floor hard as Daniel's fist smashed into his jaw. He slid across the worn living room carpet, blinking stars from his eyes. His cheek throbbed, and the metallic taste of blood filled his mouth. "What did she mean? I'm not your brother?" Daniel roared. He grabbed Noah by the collar and slammed him back into the wall, pictures rattling around them. Noah groaned, dizzy. "Daniel, stop, it wasn't supposed. Answer me." Daniel's voice cracked, half scream, half sob. "Tell me the truth." Margaret Hayes rushed into the doorway, her hair messy, clothes wrinkled from days of stress and lack of sleep. "Daniel, stop. Let him go," she cried. But Daniel shoved her aside with one wild arm. "You lied to me my whole life," he shouted. "Both of you." He shook Noah again. "Who am I?" he demanded. "Why did you hide it? Why now?" Noah coughed, wiping blood from his mouth. "Because you were already falling apart," he said. "Mom didn't want to push you further." Daniel's eyes bulged. "So it's true," he said. "I'm not a Hayes." Margaret reached for him, tears in her eyes. "Being adopted doesn't change that you're my son," she said desperately. "You are my son. I raised you." Daniel spun to face her, expression twisted. "I was never your son," he spat. Margaret flinched as if he'd hit her. "Daniel, please." But he wasn't listening. He paced the room like a cornered animal, clutching the stolen Laurent document file to his chest. His breaths came sharp and uneven. Words tumbled from his mouth, half-thoughts, broken sentences, anger, confusion, Elise's name over and over. Noah pushed himself up, glaring. "What did you even take from Elise's family?" he said. "Mom said you did something last summer." "What did she mean?" Daniel froze. For a few seconds, the whole house seemed to hold its breath. He turned his head slowly toward Noah, eyes dark and empty. "You wouldn't understand," he whispered. Noah felt a chill crawl down his spine. "What did you do, Daniel?" he asked again, this time quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Before Daniel could speak, the front door swung open. Victor Carr stepped in like he owned the house. "Enough family drama," Victor said, brushing dust off his coat. "We have work to do." Margaret pointed at him, voice shaking. "You," she hissed. "You're the one poisoning his head. Get out of my house. Leave my son alone." Victor smirked. "He isn't your son," Victor said calmly. "You made that painfully clear yourself." Daniel's shoulders twitched, another crack in his already fragile mind. Victor moved in front of him, lowering his voice. "You see?" Victor whispered. "They lied. Elise lied. Everyone lied. Except me." Daniel clutched the file tighter. "Elise knew about this," he muttered. "She must have known. Her father investigated my family. She had to know." Victor's eyes glinted. "Of course she knew," Victor said. "Why do you think she walked away so easily? Why do you think she never fought for you? You were never her partner. You were her project." Daniel's breathing turned ragged. "She didn't even look at me in court," he said. "She just walked past me. She looked at you and saw the mistake your father-in-law warned her about," Victor murmured, "and she corrected it." Margaret lunged forward. "Stop it. Stop filling his head with your garbage." Victor shoved her back with one hand, more annoyed than angry. "You did your own damage," he snapped. "I'm just pushing him toward the finish line." Daniel grabbed Victor's shirt, eyes wild. "What do I do now?" he demanded. "Tell me what to do." Victor smiled, the way a puppeteer smiles when strings tighten. "You show her," he whispered. "You show Elise Laurent that she cannot erase you and sleep peacefully behind her walls." Noah stepped closer, voice trembling. "Daniel, don't listen to him," he pleaded. "He's using you. He doesn't care about you. He cares about hurting her family." But Daniel was already drifting further away. Inside his head, Elise's face flickered in flashes on the porch, in the courtroom, behind the nursery window, always turning away, always silent. He heard only Victor, only the anger, only the ache. Moments later, Daniel stumbled out of the house, file clutched in one hand, hair tangled, shirt half buttoned. His feet barely seemed to know where they were going. The hallucinations came stronger. He saw Elise's face in the cracks of the sidewalk. He heard her voice in the passing cars. He saw her walking away every time he blinked. "No," he whispered, gripping his hair. "No, she's mine. Elise." By the time he reached the Laurent estate again, he was shouting her name like a man drowning. "Elise! Elise! Come out here! Talk to me!" Guards poured out from the security post. Marcus's voice rang over the radio. "Restrain him. He does not get near the door." Daniel grabbed the gate, shaking it violently. "You can't ignore me," he screamed. "You can't keep my children from me." 2 guards pulled him down. He fought them like someone who had nothing left to lose, kicking, clawing, sobbing. Inside the estate, Elise stood behind the nursery window, holding one of her babies. Her heart hammered, but her face stayed steady. Marcus moved to her side. "Stay back," he said. "He can't get to you. The police are on their way." Elise didn't step away. She watched Daniel thrash on the driveway, the same man who once dragged her out with no shoes and no mercy. Now he begged to be let in. Daniel slowed for a moment, chest heaving. He looked up and saw her through the glass. His voice slipped into a hoarse whisper as the guards dragged him toward the patrol car. "If I can't have you," he said, eyes fixed on her, "no one can." A cold shiver ran up Elise's spine. Marcus signaled to the officers. "Add him to a psychiatric risk list," Marcus said. "He's not just angry, he's unstable." As the gate shut behind the patrol car, Marcus's earpiece crackled. "Update," a voice said. Victor Carr was not with him. His last location is unknown. Marcus's eyes hardened. "Elise," he said quietly. "Victor wasn't with him this time. That means whatever Victor is planning, he's planning it alone." At the station, while officers processed Daniel's arrest and mental evaluation, Victor watched from across the street, hands in his pockets, already deciding whether Daniel was still useful or ready to be thrown away. Daniel Hayes screamed so loudly, the walls of the evaluation room seemed to vibrate. "Let me out! I have to see her! I have to see Elise!" 2 psychiatric officers held him down as he tried to hurl himself toward the door. His hospital bracelet flashed in the bright light, the printed line clear. 72-hour psychiatric hold danger to self and others. His breath came in jagged bursts. His hair stuck to his forehead with sweat. His eyes were red and swollen from hours of crying, shouting, and clawing at his own arms. The moment the police pulled him from the Laurent gate, the officers had seen enough restraining order violations, threats, obsession, clear instability. The judge signed off on an emergency mental evaluation. Now Daniel was strapped to a padded bench, one wrist secured, feet restrained. He didn't care. "She loves me," he sobbed. She just forgot. She can't do this to me." A nurse looked at the chart and shook her head sadly. "He's detached from reality," she murmured to another staff member. Inside his mind, Daniel replayed one image over and over. Elise standing at the window, holding one of their babies. Not crying, not shaking, not begging, just watching, calm, unreachable. He screamed again, voice tearing. "I'm her husband. She needs me. She can't live without me." But outside this small room, Elise Laurent's life was moving on without him. At the Laurent estate, Jude placed a sealed folder on the old wooden table in Alexander Laurent's study. "You should read this now," he said quietly. Elise sat in her father's leather chair. The room smelled faintly of paper, cologne, and old wood. Her triplets slept nearby in bassinets, watched over by a nurse, just outside the half-open door. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. Inside were worn pages, notes written in her father's familiar handwriting. Her father's voice filled her mind. "Elise, choose a man who values your heart, not the fortune behind it." She read the first page. Not a financial report, not a business plan, a file. Subject Daniel Hayes. Her throat tightened. Her father had looked into Daniel long before she married him, not to control her, but to understand who his daughter was trusting with her life. He had noted patterns. Persistent need for approval, influenced strongly by mother's opinions, poor boundaries with money, uses others' resources to feel important, history of emotional manipulation in past relationships. One line was, underlined twice in red ink, "If she chooses him, Protect her from afar. Do not reveal this to her unless her life is in danger. A tear slid down Elise's cheek. He hadn't tried to stop her. He hadn't thrown the file in her face. He had simply waited and prepared safety nets she never knew about. She turned the page, a short letter addressed to her, written years ago, in case things ever reach this point. If you are reading this, my daughter, it said, it means he has shown you who he truly is. When that day comes, I beg you, choose peace, choose your children, choose yourself, and let go. No wealth I leave you matters if you lose yourself in someone who cannot love you well. Elise closed her eyes. For the first time since the freezing porch, since the court, since the screaming alarms, her heart felt steady. She wiped her tears and looked at her babies through the open door. Their small chests rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. I choose you, she whispered. Later that afternoon, Jude laid out a new set of documents. Permanent restraining order, he said. Permanent no contact. Extended protective orders for you and all 3 children. Psychological risk note on his record. He will never be allowed near this estate again. Elise signed each one with a steady hand. Her name, Elise Laurent, sat beside Daniel's in line after line. This time, she wasn't signing a marriage certificate, she was signing an ending. When she finished, Jude gathered the papers. This closes his access, he said with finality. Legally? Permanently. Good, Elise said softly. Meanwhile, outside the psychiatric building, Victor Carr stood near a tree across the parking lot, hands in his coat pockets, watching the entrance. He waited until Daniel was escorted down the hallway for another evaluation. Then he slipped closer to the side entrance, stepping just inside the doorway where security was thinner. Victor, you came, Daniel gasped when he saw him in the corridor. Victor gave a small, amused smile. Of course, he said. You didn't think I'd vanish before the end, did you? Daniel reached toward him, eyes wild. You said she still loved me, he said. You said she still needed me. Victor shrugged lazily. You believed it, he said. That's what mattered. Before Daniel could respond, flashlights, footsteps, voices calling commands. Marcus Hale stepped into the hall from behind a patrol car, followed by Samantha Reed, the Laurent Estates investigator, and 2 uniformed officers. Samantha lifted her badge. Victor Carr, she said, voice clear and firm. You're under arrest. Conspiracy, stalking, tampering with legal records, and attempted harm of a protected family. She held up a folder. We have your messages to Daniel, footage from the break-in at Jude's office, and witness statements placing you near the Laurent estate on multiple nights. Daniel stared at Victor, frozen. Victor turned, trying to bolt down the opposite corridor. Marcus moved faster. He grabbed Victor's arm, pinned him against the wall with one strong forearm, and stepped back as the officer snapped handcuffs around Victor's wrists. Daniel screamed, Victor, you said she loved me. You said she needed me. You said, Victor laughed, a short, empty sound. She never did, Daniel, he said. She never needed you. You were just easy to use. The words sliced Daniel open more deeply than any verdict. His knees buckled. His mind, already fractured, seemed to cave in completely. As the officers dragged Victor away, Daniel sagged against the restraints, sobbing like a lost child in a world that no longer recognized him. At sunrise, back at the Laurent courtyard, the world felt almost quiet. Elise stood barefoot on the smooth stone, holding one of her sons against her chest. Her other 2 babies lay in a double stroller nearby, wrapped in warm blankets, tiny faces relaxed. The sky glowed in soft shades of gold and pink. Elise looked up at the light. I choose peace, she whispered. I choose my children. I choose my life. She kissed her son's forehead. Warmth spread through her chest, different from the burning pain she had carried for so long. Soft footsteps approached from behind. Samantha Reed stood there, holding a small, sealed wooden box. The lid had Alexander Laurent's initials carved into it. Elise, she said gently, there's something else your father left behind. We waited to show you until you were strong enough to stand without looking back. Elise turned, curiosity, grief, and quiet courage in her eyes. What is it? She asked. Samantha held the box out to her. It's something that changes everything, she whispered. Elise placed a careful hand on the lid. The past had broken her. Her choice now would define her future. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.